Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Telescope Show. Huzzah!
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you could do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air.
Hello, and welcome to the Telescope Show. We are discovering God through geek culture, episode 68. Here we go. We are talking about the film Ad Astra. Ad Astra. I just feel like singing every time I, say that name. It's crazy. Well, anyway, hey, how you doing? It's good to be here with you. Hope that whatever you're doing is more enjoyable because of this show. Let's jump into some news. So, the Black Widow. It's like, is it going to be out or is it not going to be out? I don't know. I just read some new news that its new release date is May 7th, 2021. There was some talk that it might go to Disney+. However, there are clauses in actress Scarlett Johansson? I don't know. I don't remember how to say her last name. Anyway, if you're listening, Scarlett, which I know you're not, sorry, I just messed up your last name. Anyway, there are some clauses in her contract that give her a percentage of the theater ticket sales. And so there's some contractual things, and there might be more to it. I'm sure there is. But that's one of the major things, at least one of the major things I read about, of why they can't move it right to Disney+. But anyway, that's coming out in May of this year, so that'll be cool. And then a whole bunch of other Marvel things I just found the dates for, and I know there's lots of other non-Marvel things, but Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, July 9th, Eternals, November 5th, Spider-Man 3, December 17th, moving into 2022, Thor Love and Thunder, May 6th of 2022, Black Panther 2, July 8th of that year, Captain Marvel 2, November 11th, and then finally, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness coming out March 25th of 2022. So, yeah, after this little, sabbatical year, we're just going to get right back into the Marvel, the thick of many Marvel movies, like the forest of Marvel movies. It's going to be cool. Hey, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about an artsy space movie called Ad Astra. So let's get into it. Ad Astra drifts through its runtime like a lonely asteroid rolling through the heavenly starfield. In other words, it's slow-moving. It's super slow-moving. My wife and I were relieved when it was done. I was like, it's finally done. I can get off the couch. However, I will say I enjoyed myself, or I found myself enjoying it, rather. I found myself enjoying it more and more as I thought back about it. I enjoyed the memory of it, and it's like a trip where a whole bunch of things go bad, but then when you look back and you're like, that was such a crazy trip, and I've had so much fun telling the story about how crazy of a trip it was, and I actually kind of like the fact that I went on it and survived. Anyway, maybe I'm exaggerating, it's not that bad, but anyway, the movie is about an astronaut named Roy McBride who was tasked with assisting in the search for his long-lost father, Clifford McBride. The elder McBride is an astronaut who went missing during a deep space mission to Neptune. Roy learns that his father, who was publicly lauded as a hero, was actually responsible for the deaths of his fellow crew members. His fellow crew members would not share his fanatical insistence that they must continue to search for signs of extraterrestrial life after many years of finding no such evidence. The mutiny, however, damaged the ship, causing a huge waves of deadly energy, like some kind of crazy dark cosmic energy, to surge across the solar system, affecting settlements on Mars, Earth's moon, and the Earth. And the movie is set just a little bit in the future. It's not crazy far into the future. It's like this century, probably the 2100s, but later in the century. So anyway, the movie isn't necessarily an action movie, right? It's not a, quote, stop the crazy guy with the ticking time bomb type plot, right? It's an artistic movie. It's a movie, in my opinion, about self-discovery. So in the process of looking for his father, Roy sees himself in a new light. He sees that in so many ways, he's actually a mirror image of his father. Roy has sacrificed everything that is dear to him to continue his career and follow in his father's footsteps. It's illustrated so clearly at the beginning of the film, right? Roy is shown repeating this set of statements, kind of like a mantra almost, but it's not a repeating mantra. It's just like these statements that he says, these self-affirming statements or something. And it's like they help him prepare for missions. And one of the lines is, "I will focus on the essential to the exclusion of all else." And he's preparing for this years-long journey to find his father, right? He leaves behind his significant other who feels completely burned by being abandoned, right? He's taken off to go on this mission, and she's like, "But I'm like here, and I'm cute, and you love me, I thought." And he's like, "I got to go find my dad," and he's out of there. And so, it's sad, but he's focused. He's focused on his mission. In the end, Roy does make it to his father. Spoiler alert, this movie's old, so I'm not even going to try to, hide the spoilers. So he makes it to his father. The crazed and obsessed father, played by Tommy Lee Jones, refuses to accept responsibility for his actions and begins to obsess about continuing the work with Roy as his assistant. The dialogue heats to a boil, and Roy finally confronts the father he used to believe was a hero. And now, Roy sees him as a murderous, cold-hearted villain. In the end, Clifford McBride thrusts himself into space, even threatening to take Roy with him. Roy escapes, of course, blows up the damaged ship in the nick of time, and in true Hollywood fashion, uses the explosion to propel his body through the rocky ring of Neptune back to his own spaceship. It was pretty epic. He used a hunk of metal like Captain America, just blasted off. But, the disillusionment brought by learning the truth about his father turns out to be transformative for him. And the movie ends with Roy repeating his old set of statements, only now their meaning has been flipped. He reconnects with the girl he loves while narrating the scene with the words, "I will focus on the essential to the exclusion of all else." It's a great ending, and it's a very artsy movie. Most of it takes place in outer space. There's lots of long, almost silent scenes of things and people floating in space. And there's a crazy space monkey, though. That's the weird thing. Like, that just came out of nowhere. It was awesome. Anyway, you got to see it. The dialogue is sparse, but like I said, it's artsy. I really enjoyed it. And I don't want to go, into too much detail talking about it. So let's dive into, how does this reflect on faith?
Bring forth the telescope!
So the story of Ad Astra caused me to reflect on times that I was disappointed with people that I had once looked up to. Have you ever experienced that? If not, you probably will, right? Everyone has someone in their life who you look up to, you believe in, and then all of a sudden you see like a different side to them, maybe a dark side, or maybe you just see the human side. Maybe you just see, they're not perfect, or I don't know. And you just become disappointed or disenchanted with that person. See, Roy believed his father was a pioneer who died in a noble cause, only to discover that his father was a crazy space killer, living in a loony bin of his own making, right? All alone out at Neptune. And hopefully you don't have like an insane dark matter wielding version of Tommy Lee Jones' character in your life. You very well might, but I hope you don't. But all of us have been let down before by someone. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's someone we admire from afar, even like a celebrity or, like an influential author, speaker, if you're in the faith world, a pastor or a priest, right? Just someone that you admire. But often it's, someone that's close to us, like a family member. And when you see the dark side of a person you once trusted, it's disappointing and it hurts. And it makes it hard to trust anyone again, right? And I know this sounds cliche. This is totally cliche, but we can trust God, right? God Himself. God Himself is the one place where our feet can be planted and be secure. At least that's what I found in my life. I'm not saying that we won't be let down by pastors and spiritual leaders, and I'm not saying that, we'll never discover a sinner in saint's clothing or a wolf in sheep's clothing, as the other cliche goes or other saying goes. But, you will see those things. You will see people who seem so holy and good and aren't. But God Himself is the rock. There's a guy named Charles Colson. He was arrested. This is like in the 70s, I believe, or 60s. Might have been the 60s. And is sentenced to prison for his involvement in the Watergate scandal. His crime was obstruction of justice. And he served time in prison. And as he was there in prison, he began to reflect on Jesus. He wasn't a religious person at that time, but Colson compared his own experience of trying to cover up the wrongdoing of President Nixon's administration with the lives of the disciples, or the disciples of Jesus. And the disciples of Jesus were proclaiming the resurrection of Jesus. And he's thinking, okay, we tried to hide this scandal, and it was so bad it failed. It fell apart. And he became utterly convinced that the stories of Jesus' resurrection could not have been based on lies, right? And why did he conclude that? Let me just read this quote from Chuck Colson. He says, "I know the resurrection is a fact, and Watergate proved it to me. How? Because 12 men testified they had seen Jesus raised from the dead. Then they proclaimed that truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Every one of them was beaten, tortured, stoned, put in prison. They would not have endured that if it weren't true. Watergate embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world, and they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks. You're telling me 12 apostles could keep alive for 40 years? Absolutely impossible." So that was his reflection in prison, right? And he became a follower of Christ in prison. He gave up practicing law. In fact, I think he was disbarred after his, obstruction of justice charge. But he forged this new life for himself. He became a minister. He started this prison ministry called Prison Fellowship, and just really was a world-changing man. And it was that comparison of him trying to hide a lie and seeing the disciples die for the resurrection. It just convinced him that there must be truth to it. Jesus described those who follow his teachings as having their feet on the rock, right? Our legs might be shaky. Our humanity might be frail, but God is the rock that supports us when we fall, and when the wind and waves of life threaten to push us down, he's the rock that's right there underneath us. So, hey, I hope that encourages you today. It was fun watching Ad Astra and just kind of pondering it over the few days, right? It would floated around in my brain like an astronaut, like floating in front of the moon, right? Like a silhouette just in my brain for days and days, and it was cool. So thanks so much for hanging out with me. Hey, I made a website. It's really bad, but you should go check it out. It is thetelescopeshow.com. Go check it out. And I'm also working on putting together a Facebook group. I'm not sure whether to convert my Facebook page to a group or just create a separate group. I already created a separate group, but I didn't invite anyone to it. So yeah, I've got a lonely Facebook group floating out there in cyberspace. But I'm going to attach it to my website. And yeah, so, just always working to make the show better. Hopefully everything we do is just encouraging to all of you who listen. And yeah, love y'all. Take care. Can't wait for the next episode. Bye-bye.
What's up, everybody? Everyone in this place, if you can do a handstand, I want to see your feet up in the air right now.